Hi, everybody. Welcome to this introduction on turning the question around, or TTQA. This is a repeat of something we did together in class, but for those of you who missed it or want a little extra help, here is a version of what we did in class today. So let me put up the slideshow here. So again, this is turn the question around, or TTQA, which is a great writing strategy for answering questions. So what is an effective way to answer a question in a complete sentence? An effective way to answer a question in a complete sentence is to use the TTQA strategy. Wow, did you see what I did there? Probably if you're paying attention, but if not, let's slow it down and examine my work step by step. So the original question, excuse me, what is an effective way to answer a question in a complete sentence? I can start turning the question around by cutting out the question words and the question mark. And you can see I've done that in red here. And I'm left with just the core of the question, the part I'm going to use in my answer. So what I'm left with, an effective way to answer a question in a complete sentence, which you can see here, the core of my sentence. Now, I'm not done yet. I haven't really answered the question yet, and I haven't turned it into a sentence yet. But that's coming up. But that's what I start with. Just get rid of the question stuff, the question words, the question mark. You have the core. And now I have to add my answer. So my answer is to use the TTQA strategy. That is an effective way to answer a question in a complete sentence. So now I have just about all the words I need, but it's not quite a sentence yet, right? So I have to go, and you'll notice here in red, I have to capitalize the beginning of the sentence and put a punctuation mark at the end. And now I have a complete sentence answer to what is an effective way to answer a question in a complete sentence. I'm going to be a real stickler this year. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be a real stickler this year for starting your sentences with capital letters and ending them with punctuation. A lot of other grammar stuff I'm pretty flexible about and understanding, but you're in 6th grade, so you need to know you start your sentences with capital letters and you end with punctuation. So here we have a little example of the TTQA strategy. So for the sake of honesty, I didn't really cut that verb is. I crossed it out before. I just moved it, right? So I took it from where it was towards the beginning of the sentence, and I moved it towards the end. So I got rid of what, which is a real question word, right? If someone says to you, you say, what? And so it's like a real question. So I got rid of the question word, what, the question mark, that curly thing at the end of the sentence with a period underneath it, and I moved the is. So that's actually what I did. So basically here, just use the key words from the question to write your sentence. When you have one of these kind of questions that you have to answer in a complete sentence, most of the sentence is already written for you. It's in the question, and that's what we're doing here. So let's try one together. What is the best food in the world? Okay, so first you have to think what your answer is, right? So before I start turning the question around and you're like, well, what is the best food in the world? This is pretty easy though. It is obviously pizza. Yes, now you might not like your pizza with one of these like Kalamata olives and it looks like sausage and basil, maybe some red onion. That looks like a pretty good pizza to me. That might not be yours, but I bet you a lot of you feel like, yeah, pizza is probably one of the best foods in the world. In class, we did this by people volunteering, taking a risk to give an answer. So what we do is we cut out the question words and the question mark again. So we get rid of what is, although again, we'll probably move that is, get rid of the question mark. So we have the core, the best food in the world. We add our answer, is pizza. And we finish it off by capitalizing the beginning and punctuating the end. The best food in the world is pizza. So now I've answered that in a complete sentence. So notice that the question did not ask for an explanation. It didn't say why or explain. It just asked what is. So because it didn't ask, we're not going to give one. So we don't have something like pizza is the best food in the world because the question didn't ask us to explain. It just asked us what is. So that's why we didn't include a because. Now, in class, again, we would do these alone or with a partner. So what is the capital of Massachusetts? So I'll give you a second to think about that. How would you say this in a complete sentence? In fact, if you're by yourself, why don't you just say it out loud? What's the answer? So again, who wants to take a risk? We did this in class. The capital of Massachusetts is Boston. So we use the core words. We used the core words, added our answer, and made sure to capitalize and punctuate. What is the capital of Massachusetts? The capital of Massachusetts is Boston. So it is usually that simple. But sometimes you have to be a little bit fancier. So it's not hard, but I just want to show you really what sometimes happens. What is the town in which you live? There's an extra step you have to take here. So think about that for a second. What do you have to do here that's a little different? What is the town in which you live? So again, in class we did this. But notice, again, we get rid of the question words and the question mark, but I have to change the you to I, because the question asks, what is the town in which you live? But when you write the sentence, you're not going to call yourself you, you'll call yourself I. So we had to change that. So it's not always exactly the words. Sometimes we have to change words a little bit here or there. So we come up with an answer like, the town in which I live is Longmeadow. So again, we took most of the words from the question, turned them around, but we did have to change a word there. And so now let's go back to that moving is. That is that we moved from the very beginning of the sentence to the end of the sentence when we were doing our first examples. So why is football so exciting? So sometimes that is doesn't move to the end, it kind of moves in the middle somewhere. This will be obvious. Don't get freaked out by this. Don't feel like, what is he talking about? You'll just naturally do this, but I'm just trying to be, clear about what's actually happening. So notice we take that is and we just move it to after football. So now I have football is so exciting. That can't be the end of my sentence because the question is why. So here you did need to explain because the question asked you to explain by asking you why. So I have football is so exciting, but now I need to add in my answer. But why is it so exciting? Football is so exciting because it's fast. Now you might disagree. You might hate football. You might not think it's exciting. You might think it's exciting for some different reason. But you see the point here. This is how we take our question, turn it around to come up with an answer written as a full sentence. Then there are yes/no questions. So when your teacher or some test or something asks you to answer in a complete sentence, you can't just say yes or no. It's not that those are wrong, but it's not really a complete sentence. So question like this, is it raining? So what we do here is we just kind of rearrange the words a little bit, right? So we're not quite turning it around, we're kind of rearranging the sentence. So rather than, is it raining? We get rid of the question mark because we don't want to answer with a question, we want to answer with a sentence, a statement that ends in a period. So we just move the is to after it, and we get, it is raining. And that gives us our answer in a complete sentence. Or if it was a nice day, obviously you'd stick in the word not. So we'd come up with an answer, it is raining or it is not raining. So again, yes, no, you're not going to get yes, no kind of questions this year in my class. So just practice answering in more detail, not just yes or no. So let's look at one last special case. How many states are in the United States? So again, we did this in class, and hopefully people came up with the correct answer, which is not 5. It is not 500. It is 50. So we get rid of the how many and the question mark, cut out the question words and the question words and the question mark. Then I have to move that R, right? So I took it out of the core and I moved it into the part that I added. So there are 50 states in the United States. So again, using mostly the same words with a little bit of information that I added. But then of course, in this one, I put my answer at the beginning because I could have said something like the number of states in the United States is 50. But that seems like a kind of an awkward way of saying it. It wouldn't be wrong if you wrote that, I'd mark it right. I think this is just a little clearer way of saying it. There are 50 states in the United States. And then of course we finish by capitalizing the beginning of our sentence and punctuating the end. That's a really big deal. I want you to leave 6th grade being accurate sentence writers. And if you're not capitalizing the beginning and punctuating the end, we get some work to do because we want to make sure you leave 6th grade being able to do that. So that was kind of a lot of information, but don't really worry about this. The basic strategy is just use the words from the question. Use the important words from the question and get them into your answer and say it as a sentence, and you've turned the question around. So now you're going to take over and you're going to do some of these. So you're going to complete a do now, a TTQA number 1. This will be a little bit of practice. And as usual, this is a graded assignment. But if it doesn't go well and you make some errors and you want to fix them, you can always fix them and pass it back in and get an improved grade. So in class, I asked if there's any questions. If you have any questions while you are working on this, you can try to contact me. So by email is probably the best way to do that. So let me stop sharing here. I think I'm at the end of my slideshow. Yes, I am. Let me stop sharing. And I'm back. So this year, very often on the work I ask you to do, I am going to ask you to answer in complete sentences, to turn the question around to TTQA. So whenever you see a question that says TTQA next to it, you're going to want to use the strategy we just talked about and write in a complete sentence. So as always, see me if you need extra help.